Hi, this is Tamara Drake with UkiahValley.tv, bringing you the latest in news from Mendocino County. In a cooperative meeting Thursday evening, Sean White and Lee Howard with the Russian River Flood Control and Water Conservation Improvement District spoke with the local grape growers, ranchers, and farmers about the impending drought.
All of the storms that are normally what brings us back from those low fall carryovers have simply, to date, not materialized. You can see that light blue line up there right above 50,000 acre feet. That was 1977. And right now, the reservoir is 18,000 acre feet below 1977, okay?
Hopefully, I'm with Sean. We get 16 inches of rain between now and March 15th, and everything's fine. But if we don't, we have a scenario right now of where we're going to have a dry lake bed. And it's not more than a few months away. So we're looking at the end of this summer. And the first ones that are going to feel this is Redwood Valley. Every drop that we release today could be that much faster to dewater Redwood Valley.
They also answered questions as to the State Water Board fines for noncompliance.
Well, we had a diaphragm that failed. It just ruptured. Everything was up to speed. We had the maintenance logs to prove that there was no negligence. Everything was good. We killed 26 steelhead juveniles with that event. That wasn't even, these weren't steelhead. These weren't steelhead. Okay. 26, not even enough to fill a 5-gallon bucket. And our fine at the end of the day was $198,000. Okay, 198 grand.
The state is reportedly making exceptions for reservoir and storage permits, and growers are encouraged to look into such permits.
I believe that moving forward, probably the watershed, the main watershed of the Russian is going to have to do what Potter Valley has made their farmers do, which is to have storage.
Right now, Fish and Game and the state and everybody else that's normally in the way on these things is actually looking for volunteers to get expedited permits so they can build that off-stream storage, so they have some demonstration projects here in the Upper Basin, okay?
Sean White talks about water ratio between municipalities and agriculture and the priorities that need to be determined.
Numerically, we have way more ag contractors than we do cities, all right? I have around 65 ag contracts and let's say 10 municipal contracts. But those two contracts, volume-wise, they're just about 50-50. So about half of our water goes to municipalities and about the other half goes to ag.
First and foremost, the two talked about working hand in hand with the growers in order to ensure the license inspection by the state may be as expedient as possible.
We've got a whole lot of problems here. What we're trying to do with you tonight is start the dialogue. There are inland power and water meetings that come off every month. We're talking about the study for Lake Mendocino, how it's operated. I find right now that all the players are pretty much to the table. They're all talking with nice, quiet voices, and they're working together. Will it continue? I hope so, but there's definitely all our interests are not the same, but we will try to work through it.
During Tuesday's Mendocino County Board of Supervisors meeting, funding for the Mendocino County Grand Jury's compensation and travel was narrowly approved. County CEO Tom Mitchell introduces the item.
There is a philosophical difference between our office and the grand jury about how much money should be made available to them for their resources. We do recognize the grand jury's role in the county and some of the legal requirements. However, much as we have discussions with the sheriff's office about how much funding we can give to law enforcement and how much funding we can give to our various social programs, we're limited in how much money we can provide to the grand jury for doing their operations.
Grand jury foreman Finley Williams discusses the item.
I believe you are all aware the grand jury has exceeded the line item for travel in this year's fiscal budget. This was inevitable given that the base budget did not factor in the increased mileage rate and the large number of jurors who are traveling to Ukiah from the coast or North County on a regular basis. The current budget has available funds left primarily in the line item for meeting cost. I anticipate that we will use all of this line item as intended. Thus, as I anticipated, additional travel funds are needed to complete this year's works.
I feel we're doing today is the grand jury tells us they're going to go over in their budget. So the grand jury needs to talk to the presiding judge, and the presiding judge needs to open up a dialogue with the Board of Supervisors, because they are officially notifying you today that they are going to go over their budget. They do not have sufficient funds. If they're granted additional funds, what that's going to mean is one more county employee has the potential to be laid off or take mandatory time off because of the fact that a department has exceeded their budget. You simply cannot ignore the fact that there are not enough funds to support all levels of county government, regardless of the needs of what people would like to do.
Several times prior to the acceptance of the final county budget on September 16, 2008, we advised the CEO's office of the inadequacy of the proposed budget. I thought that communicating this inadequacy to the CEO's office was the same as presenting the grand jury's needs to the Board of Supervisors. I have since been informed that budget reports should have been made directly to you. If we assume that 50 weeks out of the year there will be travel, that comes out to a beginning base budget of $45,000. Our beginning base budget in this budget was $15,000. This was doomed to failure before it started.
I cannot have, from a personal standpoint, department heads working directly for the executive office or elected officials reporting to the board or other departments, people to have the attitude that they're just going to exceed their budgets and that we will have to provide them additional money.
The Board of Supervisors, remembering last year's grand jury investigation into their own travel expenses, made comments.
I don't really get an understanding from you that you understand the budget situation of the county. We are in a very serious budget situation. So I object to the characterization that the efforts of the executive office to look for budget savings at every opportunity is in any way an effort to constrain the activities of the grand jury or limit its ability to investigate. That's not the point at all. I also will disagree with your statement that you've done everything you can to constrain costs. I think you could think this through a little further.
Unfortunately, what needs to be looked at is that the frequency of your meetings or the number of topics that you choose to take up. Those are discretionary in nature. So I think that you have to adjust your workload, your sphere of discussion to meet the constraints of the budget.
I understand the travel, but I have to tell you this. It kind of upsets me when the grand jury criticized me because I travel 80 miles to get to here if I come from my home residence. And in the wintertime, not only is it about 25 miles of dirt road, but in the wintertime, I have to provide my own snow removal to do that.
The judge has to recognize that by talking about a commitment of 20 hours a week to be on the grand jury, he is grossly reducing the inclusivity of the membership of the grand jury.
Supervisor McCowan moved for the recommended action. The vote was passed 3-2 with Supervisor Pinches and Colfax dissenting. And after missing his meeting completely on Monday, Supervisor Colfax gave Young News reporter Rob Burgess pointers on punctuality.
The old story, when I came on this job as the only person over the ridge who reads the Daily Journal, is the person who's elected to the Board of Supervisors from the 5th District. That's no longer the case. Maybe it'd be good if our reporter would cover our meetings from the beginning. I saw that he just arrived a minute ago. And stay here through the full day to observe what is happening, to come in, touch down, and take off again, and then launch an attack on this Board of Supervisors or this staff for failing to be open and so forth. And to begin the day this way is not something that makes me really very happy about being a supervisor. We are not going to get in an argument with someone who buys ink by the barrel, to paraphrase Mark Twain.
This is Tamara Drake for UkiahValley.tv. Check back often for more local news.